Welcome to Write Bite number 3. I'm Chris Kilgore, Writing Resource Coordinator for the School of Social Work at the University of Texas at Arlington, and this Write Bite will talk a little bit about the kinds of writing we tend to do in the social work discipline. As I mentioned in Write Bite number 2, what counts as effective writing will change depending on the circumstances. Writing becomes effective in its address to a specific audience, for whom it will accomplish a specific task, within a specific context or situation. So, unlike many disciplines, social work asks us to use and master many different genres of writing. I tend to use the features of these assignments, their audiences, tasks, and contexts, to group them into 3 big categories, which genre studies scholars call genre sets. And these are practice-oriented writing, advocacy-oriented writing, and research-oriented writing. The first major category is practice-oriented writing, which usually addresses other professional social workers with the purpose of reporting or making recommendations for the social work helping process. This category includes case notes or reports, assessment documents like the biopsychosocial assessment, analyses of ethical situations, or case studies that demonstrate parts of the helping process with specific clients. Note that many of these genres differ from each other quite a bit. Some, like case notes or reports, address coworkers who know the client you're working with in the general situation, while others, like case studies, address people you may never meet, who read your paper in order to get useful advice and aren't familiar with the client you're working with or possibly the approaches that you're using. So we have to adjust our writing strategy even within this larger set of genres when we move from one genre to another. Advocacy-oriented writing is basically writing that argues for improvements to public policy, so it addresses people with the power to make changes to laws or rules. The goal here is to make an argument that a specific law or rule does not work as well as it should, and to make recommendations for improvements. Some of these genres, like advocacy letters or multimedia projects, directly address legislators, like senators, representatives, so they're short and personable. Others, like the policy analysis paper, address experts who have more time to read, so they cover more material and in more depth. So we have to be ready to adjust how we write and what we write to suit the segment of the audience that we're addressing. Finally, whereas practice and advocacy-oriented genres address wider audiences with practical purposes oriented towards specific courses of action, research-oriented genres aim to add to the knowledge base on human behavior and effective social work practice. When we write a research proposal or a journal article, we have a responsibility to read widely and make sure that we know that what we're doing actually improves what we know about the topic we're researching, because our audience will include social work researchers and practitioners who are looking for evidence-based practices. So while many different projects involve research in some form, research-oriented genres often have a higher bar in terms of content mastery and ask us to know more about what we're discussing. Again, these will be research reports, research proposals, journal articles, sometimes systematic reviews of the literature. Their job is to add to what we know about what works in social work interventions and what we know about human behavior. Now, you may have noticed already, but not all of the assignments we do in social work classes fit easily into one of those 3 categories. That's because some assignments are designed as components of larger projects or to help us develop our ideas for a larger project. An annotated bibliography, for example, provides summaries of key arguments about a subject from specific sources and could serve any of the 3 primary genres. We could write one for sources we'll be using in a practice-oriented, advocacy-oriented, or research-oriented project. The same goes for a literature review, which synthesizes conclusions from our sources, or an article critique, or a reflection or a response or reaction to source material that we're reading for any of those kinds of project. Basically, these process-oriented subgenres, as I call them, could be anywhere. They could be serving any kind of project, so they don't fall within one of those 3 primary categories. That's all for Write Bite number 3, but you may have noticed that I used a word over and over again in distinguishing between what different genres try to do, and that word was argue. What does it mean to make an argument in academic writing? Find out in Write Bite number 4, up next.